If you've been around Pure Heart Church for really any length of time, you've probably heard us use the phrase, "we're better together." Today, we're going to put that into practice with our podcast. We're actually going to sit down and talk with one of the communications directors from Living Streams Church. I think it's a great conversation where we get to talk about some of the things that are going on in our churches, maybe how we're similar and maybe how we differ on some things. So it's going to be a great episode, and I'm so excited for us to get into it. So with that in mind, welcome to the Pure Heart Church podcast. My name is Zach Good. I have the awesome opportunity to be the producer of this podcast, and I think we've got a great episode for you today. So whether you're part of our church community or just tuning in, we are so glad that you're with us. Let's jump right in with our hosts, Heath Bottomley and Matt Nystrom.
For this week's podcast, we've got a great podcast. I know we say that all the time, but I really like these. I'm
they're great in our mind. That's what's important.
And you know what? I listen to it faithfully, and so should you.
Right? I've subscribed.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to?
And also, by the way, just to remind you, if you have things that you think you'd like us to discuss, some topics or things like that, you have ideas for the podcast, do not hesitate to let us know. You can email us at podcast, I know that was a stretch, at pureheart.org, and our producer, Zach Good, will take a look at those, and we'll do what we can and see if we can't get it onto the next podcast coming up. So,
as long as it's not too weird, like normal topics. We are a church podcast, so just keep that in mind.
Normal everyday things like what kind of zebra print are your pajamas? It's that kind of stuff that we'll definitely dive into.
Yeah, white on black or black on white.
It's black on white because it's the right combination of the two.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. You got to have the right combination of that.
You do what you got to do.
We do talk about those sometimes, some random stuff, and
but it's not as random as you think. It's actually stuff that we actually are engaging with. It came up in conversation.
We have thought about this in advance. We have given this consideration.
Oh yeah.
And there's one of the things that we've considered quite a bit.
Test marketed it.
That it's something that's a huge part of every single one of our lives, and actually is related to the rest of our podcast today.
Mm-hmm. It is. So I mean, as Arizonans, we know this. You're told every summer, you got to stay hydrated.
It's like Dune. If they've seen Dune, you're like, oh no, don't cry, because it's like the tear.
They have to reuse that,
You got to rehydrate.
And really, Arizona is pretty dang close to that.
It's close.
It gets warm, but there's always all the infomercial or all of the news commercials and everything. They're always telling you got to stay hydrated. You got to make sure you're drinking water. You don't know how thirsty you are because it evaporates so quickly. But I never realized until I moved here how much difference there is in types of bottled water.
Water culture is a real thing.
And there are very discerning tastes out there where people are like, no, I can tell the difference between Dasani, Aquafina. They're very particular about the type of water that they drink. Yeah,
and they spend money on it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what's one of those things. It's not hilarious to that person because it's like that's what they're passionate about. And we all have the thing we spend our money on that we're passionate about. So that's, to each their own. But I look at this, I'm like, how is this more expensive than every other drink here, like in the supermarket? And yet it's like the most, like 2/3 of the earth is covered by it.
But I'll tell you what, I initially was very, I'll say it, condescending, a little mocking about it or whatever. But then I started picking up on the different aftertastes of different waters and stuff. I mean, and some people, the very same thing water that someone would be like, I love this. Like we were talking earlier, and our guest Dalton was talking. He's like, oh, Arrowhead water, love it. And I'm like, yeah, I can't stand Arrowhead water. I'm like, do I say that really loudly? He's gonna hate me. No. But you have certain specific taste. You can start developing a taste of what you like, what you don't like. He actually brought in the Mountain Valley spring water,
and for those that aren't on the video,
which is an amazing bottle.
This is like it feels like an ancient 1800s bottle. It's green.
1871.
It's 1871. So that's kind of, I guess that's the look they're going for. But it's like, I mean, this is like, the cowboy times almost kind of bottle. I mean, it's pretty
pure,
epic.
It's fine. It's authentic.
It's authentic. And we didn't get paid for this. To this promotion of what's the name of it? The Mountain Valley?
We're going to get an endorsement deal from
we better,
this bottle company.
Come on. Support church.
But it is but it is a thing. Do you have a preference of type of bottled water? as I drink some of this?
Here's the thing is I do. I like a couple of the ones that are a little bougier, that are the ones that are kind of the top rack.
You're a water diva.
Yeah, the top rack of the thing. But I feel guilty when I don't. It's an occasional thing I try. He's trying it right now. What do you think? Is that worth it? Refreshing. A delicious beverage.
So you were saying bougie.
So yeah, I kind of get some bougier ones at times. Now there are, if I just need a water, I don't mind drinking those. But the ones that come in like the glass bottles and stuff, I kind of like, because I'm like, ooh, now I bought like not just, I feel bad if I just was buying water for like $8, but I'm like, I bought a container to use for something else.
So you were a reuser.
That happened to be filled with water. Yeah, I try to reuse it.
So you're a hoarder, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, don't go in my garage, because I've got like an old disassembled car and all the construction. Yeah, I've got.
See, we're diving into some more serious topics here. Yeah. It's led us somewhere.
It took us on a journey, and now we've arrived at Matt's hoarding.
It's okay to not be okay.
I'm not the one that like they're gonna like they lose people in where they're like they go, this person disappeared, and then like when they've cleaned out the place, they like, oh, that's where they were.
But you're still young.
I'm still young. That's true. It's
given some time.
I could end up there. Yeah. My wife, I don't think she'll let me get there. It's kind of like if I have the garage, the garage my sanctum. But
so she may not be able to find you one day.
There's always a project that's happening in your house that you go, man, I'm going to have to go to Home Depot. Nope. I bought like 3 of those last time. And so I ran over the sprinkler with the water, the water sprinkler with the mower again. And now I've got to fix it. Yeah. And look, I've got like 3 or 4 of them there. I don't got to do a Home Depot trip.
That's assuming that you can find them.
Well,
typically I'll hang on to something and be like, I know I have that.
True.
I have no idea where that thing is.
But my organizational skills are impeccable. That's not true because I'm ADHD.
Well, I'm very particular on where I put things, but I'm not the only one in the family. And so just because I place something somewhere does not mean that that's where it'll stay. And so at that point, I've given up all hope on some things. I'm just like, eventually, one of these days, when we move out of the house, when they're putting me into assisted living, we're gonna be like, "Oh, that's where all those
sending
were."
You away.
Yeah, when they're sending me to the 5x5 cubic foot room, I'll suddenly be aware of all the stuff that's been hidden over the years.
And you said earlier though that you are very organized with a lot of your things, except
when I've given up hope. There's certain things, because it's a mind trick or whatever, is if I know that I can actually have some control over it, I'm very particular with making sure that it's where I want it to be. If I know that there is no hope that I have any control over it,
there's kids, there's wives,
I
there's
mentally
a dog.
write it off and go, it is what it is. So it's like there's stuff on the counter, which means there's going to be stuff on the table.
Yeah.
There's going to be stuff on the couches, and I've told myself that that's okay.
Doom piles, I think, is the clinical term.
I'm like, it is what it is. Oh, well, it's the same type of thing. And I was notorious with this with vehicles. I would be so meticulous with any vehicle that I owned until it got like a ding in it or until like something broke. And then after that, I was like, I don't care.
Yep. Don't care.
Whatever happens to it now. And it's weird. So, and I'm like that with laundry, like going, if I start the process of laundry and something interrupts me, I have to go back and do it all over again. It's like, I don't care if it was like, no, it just wasn't fully dry. No, it's going back in the washer. I have to do the whole process again.
Although, let's be honest, a lot of times if you left something, accidentally in the dryer and didn't quite dry, it needs to go back in the washer. It's got that funky smell, like the mildew.
But I'm so bad to the fact of, it's been out of the dryer, it's been in a basket, but it didn't get folded, and it is wrinkled. So it's like, but I don't put it back in the dryer.
I do.
I go back to the washer again and do the whole process.
So I have the pile that is my worn half pile. Do you have a worn half pile? Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's on my hamper, Sue. I lay the things. I was like, I've worn it once.
Yeah,
but it's not dirty. But it's not fresh and clean. And so it's like I've got one more. And not just any type of wear. Like, I can run to the store in it.
Yeah.
And so it lays on my hamper until that next one, and then it goes in the hamper.
Yeah, like a Saturday night service. Like, changing clothes to come to Pure Heart on a Saturday night service, and okay, I'm here for 3-ish hours, 4-ish hours, depending on what's going on, but that's not a full day's wear. And I just, half the time you're just sitting there in an air-conditioned building, you go, that's in the worn half pile.
Yep.
But the problem is, sometimes you get so much stuff in the worn half pile, at least I do, because you go, well, I haven't had the opportunity to wear it again. I'm I kind of have places for certain outfits and stuff in my brain, at least. And so it's like, well, I haven't had the place to wear that again. And so then they get wrinkled, and then they just go in the automatic, like, you're like, yeah. Hamper, it's done, throw it away.
But for me, even if it's clean and it gets wrinkled, or for whatever reason, it's back in the washing machine.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I've piled like different categories for different things. Now, socks, I don't have to roll them. Well, actually, it annoys me that they're rolled because I have to separate them later.
Really?
Yeah,
Do
I'm
you
like,
stack your socks?
Yes.
That feels
So, because I'm like, I can grab 2 socks. I can grab 2 socks, and I don't have to do anything except.
So all the socks, are all your
on.
socks the same?
Yes.
Oh, okay. See, I used to do that. I used to have.
No, hang on. So I have one thing of just all, like the black socks that I use. And then I have another container that is just the white socks.
Yeah.
Because they have a different feel to them.
Sure.
And also a different height to them.
But they're all the same brand.
They're all the same brand.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I did that for quite a while because it is, you lose socks. You're just like, well, I'm just replacing, oh, these are getting old. Like, and then you don't have to find the match. But then I bought off Temu some of these like shorter ones that had different colors. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And now I've got the sock problem where I've got a stack of the Temu socks that don't have a pair. And because they send you like 27 different colors.
You're doomed.
You're doomed.
Yeah.
You're just, and you can't throw it away because you're going to find it, is what you believe.
Yeah. Now we know what is going to end up driving you insane.
Oh, it's what drives me insane.
That's the end of Matt as we know you.
Actually, the worst part of the day, like my mother-in-law, she's living with us right now, and she helps out with laundry and stuff. And my wife, she works also. So sometimes laundry, if my mother-in-law's not there, it doesn't get done quite as quickly as, and sometimes you run down to the end of socks. So the worst thing in my world, I mean, not the worst thing, but one of the worst things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's
if this is as bad as it gets.
This is as bad as it gets. In my, is to get dressed and have to grab the 2 different socks. It's like, oh, this is the,
okay. Your feet are going to feel weird all day long.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally do.
And if your feet feel weird, you're unsettled.
It's unsettled. It's stabilizing.
And the last thing you want is to be unstable.
You don't want to be unstable.
No,
that's not right.
There's warning signs against that all day long.
That's why we stay hydrated, is to stay stable.
I've just realized we've done exactly what Zach Good, our producer, warned us about.
I know, we just get off on tangents.
Yeah, we started talking about water.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about socks and OCD.
And OCD. And
so I think it's probably safe to say we could probably move on to talking to Dalton.
Yeah, talking to Dalton about his water.
Yeah, and which grateful for. He's a good guy, really good guy.
Yeah, so good.
So enjoy the podcast. It's a good one this week. So I'm here with Dalton Davis, and this is a lot of fun because. So I'm here with Dalton Davis, and this is a lot of fun because. When I first met you, it was at a different church, and you were, I want to say, like 12 years old.
Yeah, 12 or 13.
Yeah, something like that. You're a drummer, and and I remember you coming into my office, and at that point, I was the worship pastor, but also was tasked with comms and marketing and everything that was kind of rolled into that. And I remember you just strolling right into my office and asking me, so what is it you do? And so I unpacked and was like, tried to clarify it, and you just stood there and you nodded, and you're just like, I'm going to do your job. And I'm like, and then you walked out, and I'm like, I think he is. He is going to do my job.
That's so funny.
And I love it. I mean, as most of us, we were all, we all had that, especially type A personality. So we had kind of like, we were all like that punk kid who, but slowly, like, if we put our minds to something, we were going to do it.
Yeah.
And so seeing you now, what do you do now?
I'm doing basically what you do. Well, I mean, not worship pastoring.
And more.
But, so I work at Living Streams Church. We're a church in Central Phoenix. We have a huge bell tower. I tell them, Central and Glendale, they go, oh, that's like the huge building. It's
you've got the coolest stained glass windows.
Yeah. It's classic, that's for sure. But, so I work at Living Streams. I'm the communications and media director. So I handle, we were talking before we started rolling, but like, basically 4 people in this room are doing a job spread out that I do alone at
so
Living
basically
Streams.
You're saying that you can do what all these guys do. And
No, just worse. No, I
wear all their hats.
Yeah. So, especially the past year, we've gone through some staff changes and some expectation changes as far as what we produce and what the content we produce and kind of that scope. So yeah, I'm tasked with doing social media, website, email lists, photography, video. Those are my trade jobs. So photo and video. I own a photo and video business with my wife on the side. So more of her thing now. But yeah, so it's just stuff that I really love to do.
And by the way, you're married to Ashley. And
Yes.
Ashley, you married into like one of my favorite families on the face of the planet, Kevin and Sherry Rowe's family. So, but she's a Dalton. You didn't become a Rowe. So
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you kind of did become a Rowe.
Yeah,
no matter what.
It's hard to not meet someone in the Valley that doesn't know Kevin and Sherry Rowe, you know? So those are my in-laws. I love them so much. They're good grandparents to my kids and everything. And it's just great family, and we're really tight-knit. So
and I know
it's kinda
Kevin
cool
loves having someone who has more of his coloring and complexion in the family.
Oh, for
you
sure,
know, just
for
so
sure.
you
The
guys
difference between
bonded.
the difference between me and Kevin is I don't know how to fix anything, and Kevin knows how to fix everything on the face of the planet.
He is so handy. I don't know,
Yeah.
like it's just, and he's got it. I'm like, it puts us to shame. It really
Yeah,
does,
between him and my dad, I can always have either my car or my home fixed. It's crazy. So
I call
definitely
him
blessed.
probably more than anyone. Just going, I need help. Please help me.
Yeah. He's one of those people that is just super reliable. So it's super blessed to have him in my life.
So even when we were building this out, Kevin came in and basically drew out the plan for how to do it. You know, it's going, hey, you're going to want this many feet between this and this, you know, and everything. Because he and I, we'd done studio stuff together. So I'm like, I've got to bring Kevin into this. So.
I got to say that studio, can I say the previous church?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
okay? Okay, I didn't know.
We'll beep it out.
I don't know.
No.
I've never done this sort of thing. I'm always on the other side. So yeah, the church that we both I came out of, New Life Community. I just remember being in that recording studio. We had a little band with my wife and her sister and her husband now, but like recording with Adam Froke and stuff like that. And I'm name dropping everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows these people, but
so
we know these people.
Adam's played here last time he was in town.
I'm sure he has. So just being in that studio was so cool, and seeing like that was kind of the enchanting part about like that in my young kind of thinking was like ministry is so cool all the time because you get to do fun stuff all the time.
It's never difficult.
Yeah, it's never hard. There's never hard people to work with or relationships to hash, conversations to have or anything like that.
To be young and naive.
Yeah. But that was the enchanting part of like even kickstarting my ministry career now is, experiences like that. People like Brian Drinkwine, you, and what Kevin and Sherry were doing with young adults, and just seeing them lead worship and stuff like that at that previous church. That's the kind of stuff that like fueled me, and my dad just being willing to wake up at like 5 and drive me to worship practice and stuff like that. So it's really cool. It's kind of sentimental in a weird way. Like all these emotions and feelings get mixed up when I have kids now. So like seeing all the people in my childhood, and I'm nowhere near like old. I turn 29 tomorrow.
No, you're just a young.
I know I am. But like, I feel like if I already feel like, man, I'm surrounded by so many people that I know so well and that I've known throughout most of my life, when I was walking closely with the Lord, and sometimes when I wasn't in my young adult years, it's just kind of cool to like, be sitting here with you and being, talking and seeing the people here and the crossover with Living Streams and New Life and stuff like that. So,
and that's what I love about the fact we talked about it earlier, just the whole thing of if you've been doing this for any length of time, if you've been, especially in the arenas that we work in and stuff, we all know the same people, and it's this big, just like evolving family, and everything. But honestly, selfishly, I love the fact that I've get to see from the side what's happened in your life, how you've been constantly honing your craft. I remember a couple of years ago seeing you working on some video things of trying to, with the stage cameras and stuff. You're like, I put together this, I taped this to this, and I created this thing or whatever. And I'm looking at the result and I'm like, that looks amazing on the screen. Like going, you did that? And there was just that gleam of just going, dang, I love seeing the evolution of someone working at their craft and continually getting better, especially if they're dedicated to it the way that you are. It's really cool to see what you've been doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. If you knew my thought process, I don't think it warrants. So like, wow, that's really cool.
Every creative
does not
thinks
feel
that.
very cool. But like, I think all of that just, again, comes from people and just people now like Ryan Romeo in my life, and David Stockton, our pastors over at Living Streams, just people constantly just moving us forward and getting us to reassess and everything, and just trusting us really well, like putting right people. And I'm not saying I'm, the perfect person for this job or whatever, but somebody trusts me with it, and so like there's kind of a, I don't know, I don't want to say pride, but like I'm proud of that fact, so to be this young doing what I'm doing and to just kind of, if everyone knew just like how much it was just YouTubing stuff and just like figuring it out, I'm a community college dropout. So YouTube was like the only option I had. And now it's awesome because you can figure, and everyone has done everything on YouTube, so yeah, it's cool. It's definitely cool.
And here's the thing is that not everyone knows how to find stuff. So you have a gifting of being able to find someone who knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And the drive to actually get it done.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, and I tell my team this all the time, is that creatives struggle with imposter syndrome probably more than anyone else because the imposter syndrome says someone's going to find out that I don't know what I'm doing or I just made this up.
Right.
But the role of a creative is to make it up.
Yeah.
You're creating things oftentimes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so you feel it, you're like, someone's going to find out that I just made this up. And it's like, but that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of thing where like especially like when you go to design school, and I know you're familiar with this, like graphic designers are problem solvers, and you're like, oh, you kind of roll your eyes at it, but you're like, yeah, that's kind of it, and creativity is just solving problems, so whether it be budget or time or, ease of use for volunteers in our arena as far as being in church and stuff like that, that's definitely one of those things that,
And I mean, you're already kind of touching on it, but so in your role with everything you do, what is it that you're finding? What are you most passionate about in what you do at Living Streams?
Yeah, I'm passionate about really just telling the story and character of God through different aspects and angles and perspectives. So I think there's a way that we do church, and I think we can kind of get used to that, kind of nose blind to how we do things in church. And I think the global vision of the church, like Big C, is just to worship Jesus and equip the saints. So every church should be doing that, like no matter what denomination, and then the flavor of your church, you have a certain people that you serve, your congregation, your community. They make up your pastor. They make up your staff. So it's just really finding out who the people are at your church and going, okay, how do I serve them the story and the character of God in different ways that they've never seen, which is a fun part of it. But sometimes it is liturgy and stuff that we've done as the church for centuries and centuries, And so that's kind of what I'm passionate about, is kind of seeing like a stagnant creative culture in church, going, okay, how do we shake this up? Not for the sake of shaking it up, but because we just don't get nose blind to what we're doing. Kind of where liturgy, I feel like, especially now with like Protestant churches and stuff like that, kind of liturgy is kind of lost on that. So we're seeing that come back into churches and stuff like that, and I'm talking like broad stroke. I'm sure there are churches that have always done liturgical things. So,
and I think I find like it's the same type of thing as, everyone went to email, everyone went to digital type of communications and everything. And in the process, they let go of the art of analog communication, like writing letters, things like that.
Yeah.
But now you're seeing this resurgence of it coming back because now it's with intent.
Right.
Behind it. And that's what I find in the same way with liturgy and everything is going, it became rote, it became, and then we switch gears going, it's mundane. We want to do something else.
Yeah.
And so we started doing all these things and then people started returning to it, except with different focus. It became with intent.
Yeah. It's the cycle of culture. Yeah. It's just the cycle of culture. We're seeing it with social media right now, where like 5 years ago, feeds were curated perfectly. They were designed with like an aesthetic in mind. Now it's just like, how busted can you make, like your photos look, like there's no filters on photos. Like when I first downloaded Instagram, I was like, I get to make my photos look like film, which is hilarious because the presets on Instagram are just not good. And
so everyone's like, that's a filter.
Yeah.
Of a film.
Exactly. So like, we're just seeing that cycle of, and we're getting into like more of the creative process specifically now, but just that cycle of culture where everything gets really curated and then the deconstruction of the curation. So, I mean, and even that in and of itself, the curation of of a deconstructed, like specifically to Instagram feed and stuff. It's still curation. You're still putting just as much effort as you are into making your photos not look like high effort.
Yeah.
It's just a different style. So yeah, it's no wonder why we see things come in and out, in and out, in and out.
What was it? We were doing something for Experience Conference, which I'm a part of, and our photographers had a guest photographer with us. And Jill, she was like, I love that picture that you took. How'd you get it to do the lens flare thing the way or whatever? And he's like, oh, it's a filter.
Yeah.
And she's
Perfect.
like, but the whole goal was to make it look like real and raw or whatever. And it's like, but there is that cycle. And I think it's in art in general and stuff. We're having the conversation with Brenna, just talking about, I can actually follow the trends of like when music gets really polished and then it becomes really raw and grungy and then polished again and people they push away from it and then try to find something that's unique and real.
Yeah, I think if you can just get maybe not so swept up in the like stylization of things and just see the heart behind everything. So that specifically, with music, like someone like Upper Room, who has these moments that they're just taking from their Sunday mornings and kind of posting on Instagram, like their camera work is not good, quote unquote, but like it's a certain style, right? So they're trying to capture like the rawness of what's happening in the room. There's a reason why they're doing it, but now we're seeing a lot of churches go like, oh, we need worship moments. Like, let's post those on Instagram, but it doesn't work the same way because they're not Upper Room. So that's what I mean. Like
they're trying to replicate.
Yeah. You just, there are certain things you can replicate and strategize, but stuff like that, like just, if your church isn't full of like passionate worshipers like Upper Room is, and that's even like a loaded thing to say, passionate worshipers. What does that even mean?
Look like? Yeah.
If your church doesn't look like Upper Room's, and if you try to strategize like Upper Room does, it's probably not going to work for you. So I think that's one thing to tag onto that passionate thing. Like I'm really passionate about just like, what's the one thing that never gets old? Scripture and the character of God and the Bible and what Jesus did, and in the Old Testament, all the foretellings of, like when you start to understand that, that's what's really like, that's what gets me excited. I came out of a season just recently where I just unfollowed every church, like pastor, leader, creative, and like church account on Instagram, because I found myself just comparing, like, and like what if I didn't, like, if I need to do a t-shirt design, or I need to do new sermon series art, or I need to edit this video, like what if I just like went to my Bible first? Like what would happen, and that, like, there are some people that are like wildly uncomfortable with that, but like it really is one of those things where I think like not enough, like it's obviously what we should be doing, but we just get so swept up in culture and church culture, which feels different. But, if you're still like building an idol out of something, you're still worshiping an idol, even if it has a church code on it,
When those are the loudest voices in your influence,
elevation is elevation. We don't need any more elevations.
Absolutely.
We don't need any more Hillsongs. We don't, like, those churches serve those people, and that's awesome. But
I can't tell you the amount of people that have been like, oh man, you guys could totally do like the Maverick City thing. You could, and I'm like, we're not Maverick City. I'm like, what I want to do is I want Pure Heart to be Pure Heart. Like going, who are our people?
Right.
And I think that's what I'm hearing you saying is going, it's about finding out what is the voice of your people, both in the congregation and the community, and also on your teams and everything. Yeah. And be authentic to that. Even no matter what that ends up being, because that's what. It's the type of thing, if you're dating someone, you don't want to pretend to be someone else in order to attract them. Right. It's like the best thing you do is be who you are.
Yeah, and that might turn off a lot of people.
Yeah, but
and
at
that's
least
okay.
It's not fake.
Yeah. I think that's, man, you touch on something that I didn't really even think about. Like, you really do kind of short sell a lot when you just, kind of give into like a style because it's cool, or because every other church is doing worship moments. Now we have to, like it's just one of those things, especially with living streams. I'll just make it really practical. One of the things that we've done is completely stop promoting events on our timelines. We've completely stopped it.
Which seems so counterintuitive to like,
we've stopped doing it, and we just promote in stories. They disappear in 24 hours. it's not evergreen content. Your event that happened last week. Yeah. So one of the things that we've really started to do is obviously like our pastors write content every single week. Like it's right there,
Yeah.
So we utilize tools and stuff like that just to
And that should be evergreen.
That should be, yeah. And that's your job as like a good creative staff church member or whatever, is to, okay, cool, that would really resonate with my community. We have a lot of young parents or like younger it's an age bracket, right? So there's me, young parent, and then there's like somebody who's like 5 years older than me, which feels like two different worlds. But like parenting content does really well with our congregation because we have a lot of parents, or kind of more biblically based teaching rather than topical based teaching. Like, so there's this content that we pull from every single Sunday. Also, we produce podcasts like just like we're doing right now. So like, are we pulling, like a good point from that podcast? So that's the stuff that we tend to post on like our timeline. And because it's not dated, it serves a bigger purpose than just promoting your ministry. It's doing ministry on the timeline, which is like one thing that I'm obsessed about, like type A, like insanely like dictatorial about it. Like
you're driven
like,
towards
like
accomplishing
everyone's
that,
like let's post about this event, we need more. I was like, okay, we're gonna do it, but we're gonna do it on our email list because that's what gets the most open. So there's some strategy stuff in there, but just as an example of like the style of like how we do church in a digital media age and stuff like that. I don't know, that felt like a tangent, so
that's
pull it
that's
back or whatever.
spot on. I mean, and something that I think in the midst of all that, as we're developing the things that we're, how we do ministry and everything, something that I found is that's been a shift that we've been trying to navigate through is, and you've probably felt this as well, is volunteer hours have gone, they're not extinct, but they've minimized. And, I'm looking at stats too of just the fact of, 20 years ago, you had more people there was one person in the household who had the main job.
Right.
And then the other one had more. And so then
the
they
kids
had
have
more
to have a job to
it's like
pay
just
rent.
to pay rent. Everyone, the dog is working a side
exactly,
gig,
exactly.
But your volunteer hours have evaporated from families and couples.
Yep.
And so, but that affects a lot of the things that we would do.
Right.
And everything is we've been used to having these volunteer teams to accomplish all of these things that we're passionate about, to communicate all that.
Right.
How have you guys been cultivating your teams and in this? It's a new reality. I mean, we have a good base of volunteers,
right?
But it's different now.
Yeah.
What do you guys do?
Well, it's an uphill stream, or it's like swimming up current is the way that I want to say that. Always, consistently. So, or another way to look at it is like it's a barrel with a bunch of holes in it. So to keep it filled up, you got to keep pouring into it. So
that's a great analogy.
And that's like culture in a nutshell. But volunteer culture specifically, like the person comes first over any task, over anything they can do for your ministry to make your job easier. Especially for me as a staff member, it's really easy to be like, I don't want to do that. Like, I know this servant leader is awesome. They show up every single Sunday early. I know I can throw it on them, and sometimes that's okay, right? Like, but, your heart in that, just having the person first. Know people's birthdays. Put them in your phone. Keep track of Facebook. Look on Planning Center. See what their birthday is. Put it on your calendar. When it's their birthday, send them a happy birthday text. It's like, I think, I don't know where like people have bought into this idea that it takes like a ton of work or like effort or time, and there's some things that do, like, a volunteer is going through a hard season. You're spending extra time with them. If that's, something that you feel led by the Lord to do, you do that, and with my volunteers, specifically, we train them in confidence before any task-based thing. So everyone's like, I don't know how to run a camera. Okay, well, it's 3 buttons, and you're going to be bad at it at first, but your third round, your third service, you'll be a pro, So breeding confidence in people always leads to competence. So, and that's not even my original thought. I think that's a Brady Shearer thing.
Okay, well, I was going to tweet it as mine.
Oh.
Wait, nobody tweets anymore.
You can, you got it. No, you can have that one. Yeah.
People are like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You didn't write that.
Yeah. But it's true,
Yeah, it is.
and so that's something for me is like, cool. I don't need hot shots. You know, there are some things like front of house, like you want a good front of house engineer, right? Because that affects everyone in the room.
Right. A certain baseline level of expertise.
Exactly. There are some of those volunteer jobs. Like at our church specifically, we have some contractors that we work with. Specifically for that, just because it's kind of the backbone of everything we do, you know? But our broadcast team is all volunteer based. I sometimes will get in and direct or hop on a camera. I think that's one thing that leaders should be doing is like, if you don't know what it's like to run the task that your team is responsible for, don't lead that team.
Yeah.
You know, and before we started, I said I'm pretty opinionated. I'm gonna if you just want me to pull back a little bit, you just let me know.
No, I'm on the same page. So because we do the same thing. Going, if you're on this, I want you to train on everything because I need you to, because you need to know. Restaurant managers will be the guys who are bussing tables.
Yeah.
They're in the back cooking. Because they need to know what it's like.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to jump in anytime.
Yeah, for sure. If something breaks, it's your responsibility to fix it, you know, and stuff like that. So those are some practical ways, just people first. And then there's no like linear training path, but parallel kind of line of thinking is like, be in tune what's happening in the room. You know, if the Holy Spirit's moving in the room and you need to pray for someone, put your camera down and pray for that person. Like that's the kind of stuff that like, that's what like truly gets me fired up. That's happened a couple times. And like I've had no cameras to cut to because everyone's like just caught up in this Holy Spirit moment in the room and people are praying over congregants. Like that's what I want.
Yeah.
Like that's like a huge win, as if it matters. Like
that's when it's okay to cut to the wide shot and leave it there.
Yeah, just leave it. That's another thing is like with cameras specifically, like just an expectation shift of like everything we know about church was made up by someone. It can be changed at any point, you know, as long as it serves your people well. So anyway, so that was a tangent, but volunteers, just the person comes before anything they could ever do for like. We always like to say, you know, like, we're doing it for the Lord. And it's like, sometimes you want to be like, we're doing it for you, you know? Like, we're doing it because you think it's important. And I try my best to, like, never make someone feel like that, you know? So I don't know if it works or not, but I have great volunteers. Like, I don't know. They're involved with my life. I'm involved with theirs. So, and it's fun. So I don't know.
I think, and just along those same lines, you know, what you're talking about is you're showing them that they're valuable, and they're valuable even towards what you're trying to accomplish, what you're called to accomplish. You know, I can't tell you how many times, you know, I met a volunteer, you know, someone, and their disconnect is thinking that maybe what they do, and they're like, it doesn't really matter, and going, it absolutely matters, and it's helping us get here. But a lot of times they can't draw that connection themselves.
Yeah, I think that brought up a good point too. Like, you know, what you do does matter, but it's never like the crux of like what makes you you.
Exactly.
I think like a lot of times
more than what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, like a lot of times volunteers will mess up. They'll be like, I am so sorry. And I'm like, hey, no one died. It's fine. It's just church. Because you cut to black accidentally because one of the inputs didn't have a camera plugged in.
That was it. We're closing the doors.
Or you cut to like you cut to a camera and it wasn't in focus and they're still trying to get their shot. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about any of that. I care about your character. Are you showing up on time? That kind of stuff is so. It's been talked about 1 billion times, so I won't touch on any of that. No, but like,
it's still important. But
it's still super important. But like that culture of like, hey, like. If it goes well, it's all my team. And if it goes bad, it's on me. Mm-hmm. That's what I tell. I think that's what makes a good leader. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but that's how I kind of bring it up.
No, that's the driving philosophy that goes against the grain of, I was talking to someone about there's the idolatry of leadership.
Yeah.
Where you get to a point where, and it's now talking about opinionated, I get some
Let's hear it.
slack on this, is that we have so idolize the under the guise of honor in leadership that it's like I have hit this level of leadership and now I have attained the ability to have my will be done by other, you know, it's like, and it's like I've arrived now. People will, this is what I do as a leader. People are going to do my vision.
Yeah.
And it's like, and actually the whole thing is going, No, it's reverse of going, you've gotten to a point in leadership where now it's all about making sure that other people are shining.
Yeah.
That they're able to be exactly who they were called to be.
Yeah.
And going, it's even more so, it's like parenting. You know, it's like parenting is great. I created clones of myself to do my bidding. No, suddenly it's no longer about you. It's about them.
Yeah, it's submission comes to mind, you know? Like, if you're a leader, you're submitting to someone. And if you don't think you are, I think that's
dangerous.
That's a scary, dangerous place to be in. You
Absolutely.
know? So, but anyways, I don't know. Anything else? I
No,
feel like I just shotgunned.
We're going right into it. Like,
yeah.
Because I agree. Like, I'm very. That's been something lately that's just going. I've clashed with is the idea of leadership. And it's like leadership is willing to be able to go, I am choosing now to serve the people that I am entrusted with. Yeah. You know, and going, that's a big deal. And it shouldn't be taken lightly. And that's why not everyone needs to be in it. Because I hear people go, man, that doesn't sound like something I want to do. I'm like, then don't be a leader. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
But often those people that are like, I couldn't be responsible for that much. Usually those people are the perfect leaders, are like great leaders. You know
the ones
what I mean?
who back away from it. But
Yeah.
the people who don't want to do it, they're the ones I'm like, then you probably should not be stepping into leadership.
Yeah, no, for sure.
If you don't want to be responsible for someone.
There's definitely a line there.
Yeah.
I think my life is just ruled by like, if I'm 25% scared by something, it's usually a good indicator that I probably should do it, you know? And like, I think, you know, the idolatry of like leadership and just it being like super, like the super sexy thing that like you're entitled to, or it's like the end goal. I think it's just a lie. I think it's something that, honestly, I think the church kind of has had a hand in kind of breeding that thinking a little bit. I mean, we're seeing the fruit of that.
Yeah.
I mean, go on Twitter and see what church has this like prolific pastor that has run into some sort of moral issue. And this podcast is not about that, but, you know, like the fear of influence. Nathan Del Turco is one of my favorite people, one of my best friends. And I remember somebody was telling him like fear influence. And I thought that was so like wise, you know? And this person didn't even really know Nathan, or it was definitely like a God thing, you know? And Nathan, if you know his story, not for me to tell, but like you had like every opportunity to like be the guy. But Nathan is like first in, last out. Like when he stepped off of staff, he's going to plant a church in Kansas City through Living Streams. And I was just like, what are we going to do without that guy, you know? And I was like, I have to figure out how to be Nathan when he leaves, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not like being him, but, you know, embodying the character of him.
To continue that mindset, that vision.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So anyways, but yeah, I love that guy. He's
That's
like
awesome.
he has a book on worship leading and stuff. It's just like, that guy's just a fountain of wisdom.
Yeah.
So
It's good people.
Yeah.
Very good people. So, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but what are you seeing right now because creative arts and arts in general in churches has always been a kind of a hot button issue for people because it's so filled with preferences and people get preferences and beliefs confused a lot. And so, but in your world, in what you're seeing, what is it that you're seeing that you're like, I'm really excited about this?
I think there's a lot of opportunity in church media and creativity. So I don't want to go the other way and say that it's been mishandled, because I don't believe that. But I think there is what we've talked about a little bit already, you know, this kind of stagnant culture of like, this is how cool church media is and stuff like that. I think that just breeds a lot of opportunity to just do something different. So one thing that excites me is just seeing how churches are going to be not like smarter in strategy. You know, like one thing that comes to mind is some bigger multi-site campuses are doing like VR church. That's not what I'm talking about as far as like opportunities for like, you know, how to do ministry differently, you know. And that's just an opinion I have. Maybe it is like a valid ministry.
Well, I mean, if that's you,
but
trying to do it if it's not you.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to grasp that, you know, like even online church, that's a whole nother can of worms. But like, I think there's just a lot of opportunity. That's what excites me. It's just like, we're going to like, gosh, just the fresh revelation of like the Holy Spirit on people. God is still speaking, God's still moving in new ways, the stories we hear through testimony, but also just like, one thing I really like about Elevation is their film department. So they've had like, they've done like specifically like a film for Easter depicting the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus, but from like a Southern black family. And it's just a cool depiction of like something we've heard a billion times, you know? So that's what I'm talking about. There's opportunities for like really cool way. And I'm like one of those like movie guys that's like, I like, you know, like Arrival and like, you know, those kind of movies that kind of just take what you know about film and just flip it on its head.
Had
Like
a great conversation about Arrival yesterday with I believe it was Jill.
yeah,
in
that movie.
communications.
I think I watch that movie like 3 times a year.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much, and somehow it just still like I still surprised, you know, at the end of
Well,
it.
because there's a philosophical truth
Yeah.
in there of just going the way that you process, the way that you communicate, it actually does shift the way that the reality exists in your world. You know?
Yeah, and that takes a lot of effort. So like that's what I mean by opportunity is like just putting effort into not telling the obvious story, but like digging deeper, spending time in the secret place with the Lord, reading your Bible, not seeing what, you know, like self-admittedly, like Elevation Film is just so cool and I just want to I want to be on their team really badly, you know? But like, you know, turning that kind of like, you know, digging through Pinterest for like graphics and like you're just kind of stealing stuff from like different things, you know? And that's part of like inspiration. That's not bad in and of itself, but I think that's what I'm really like looking forward to. It's like that, how are we going to tell the same story that's been told, you know, like without being heretical, like in really artful ways, because I think God cares about art a lot. I mean, the first person filled with the Holy Spirit, or not the Holy Spirit, but like the Spirit of God in the Bible is an artisan, you know, and he's tasked with creating the literal Ark of the Covenant, which is kind of a tall order when you think about it. And I never
Especially
would want to do that.
What that was supposed to embody at that point, you know, so like going, man, that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, so that's what I'm really excited about. And I think that just takes a lot of effort. I'm not perfect at it. I know I can sit here and be like, you know, church culture needs to change in these ways. And I'm part of church culture. I contribute to the problem, but just really like cracking open the Bible, spending time in the secret place, worshiping like in your prayer closet, you know, like that kind of stuff. Not to like over spiritualize it, but that's where like
It's
all of
foundational.
that.
Everything else
like,
comes from that.
It's a non-negotiable to
Right.
me, and I'm terrible at it. But you know,
It's
the
funny
Lord
how
has
those key things are the things that we write off the quickest. And
yeah.
like,
It's almost like we are supposed to spend our entire lives doing it and perfecting it, and we'll never be perfect at it. You know, so I think like there's this artist that I've been listening to a lot named Andy Squires. And he's a beautiful storyteller. He's a music artist, and he just the way he writes from a different perspective, his storytelling, and then he also does these like zines, which is kind of cool because that's like kind of like a punk rock culture kind of thing, or like a skateboard culture. But he does these like worship magazines that he'll release called Poet Priest. And it's kind of mixed with different photography, and it's just his writings. But on Instagram, he does those exact same writings. And it's just like, if you want to glean from like a modern day, like mystic or like person that's really close with the Lord and just is really artful, like that guy and John Mark McMillan are two people that they're just like they're endless fountain of like artistic wealth. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Man, Dalton, thanks so much for jumping on here. This has been good. It's been a while since we've had a conversation other than just like, how you doing?
Yeah,
you know?
in passing at a conference or something like that.
But we love everything that's happening at Living Streams.
Thanks,
I know we pray for you guys in rotation on our weekends and everything, in service and everything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would love to, if you're cool with it, I'd love to bring you back here time and time again and just pick your brain on different topics as we jump into them.
For sure, yeah. If you need an opinion, I have no shortage of them, and I live right down the road, so it's like
That's
not
perfect.
that hard. Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, dude, thank you. It's truly like an honor just to be like, kind of bridging gaps, and like I think where we see a lot of like competition, you know, that's kind of like what comes to mind immediately. Not saying that specifically with any church, but you know, like when we realize that, you know, we all have different flavors of, kind of doing the same thing, you have a lot of honor and respect for your neighbor down the road as far as the church. So it's just cool to be here and like see, Pastor Dan is like prolific, and even him and Mark Buckley's relationship and David and stuff like that. It's just cool. So it's
I love seeing especially that when you see the churches, they're not going, oh, we got to one up. It's because it's not about that. It's going, we're in this. We have the same goal, and actually, if anything, man, we're making each other stronger.
Yeah.
And learning from each other. And I love the fact that we have that type of relationship with you guys. So I appreciate it. Well, cool. Thanks again.
What a great segment. I think oftentimes creatives tend to want to follow trends and go the direction that everything's going, but that may not always be the best thing, especially when forwarding the gospel. And so I think that was a great point, and some other points were just phenomenal. It was a great conversation. And speaking of trends, it's time for What We Don't Know with Brenna Pavkov, so let's jump right in.
Matt and I are, we are so way up there in age. We're past the midlife. We're hanging on by a thread. If this was the 1700s, we'd be basically dead.
That's true.
That's just reality.
Yeah.
So
we would have gotten the fever at this point.
Yes, the plague. He's got the and so Brenna, shine some light on what we don't know.
So I actually want to flip things, and I want to know what I don't know. So you guys are a little bit older than me, so I want to hear a little bit about the 80s, 90s, and thousands, and maybe some trends that you guys did or did not participate in. So I just wrote down a few different trends and things that I think are interesting, and I want to know what your experience was with these things. So my first, because this is making a big comeback, is the mullet. Did either of you have a mullet? Know somebody?
Oh yeah,
with the mullet. You knew people with mullets.
Knew people with because there's the sneaky mullet, which was more of the Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon era mullet, and so it was like, and actually Gabe Denny's mullet is kind of like that. It's it's just kind of long. It's just the sides are slicked or cut short, and then it curls back or whatever.
A little longer, but
it's not just. Then there was just a straightforward mullet where it's almost buzzed all the way across, except for the straight long hair in the back.
Yeah.
Those ones I don't know anyone that had those. Like,
no, I grew up in Kansas. That was there.
There were lots of mullets.
There were some mullets there. I didn't have one. Now, do you know what a rat tail is?
Is that with just the tiny,
just
like the Jedi hair?
Just the little Jedi hair. Yeah. Now, see, like the kids with mullets and the kids with rat tails were the bad kids.
Oh.
And like I wasn't allowed to be around these bad kids.
If they have a mullet.
If they had a mullet or whatever.
Like
it's like, oh, you can't be around those kids because they're the bad kids. Yeah. Oh. That and high top tennis shoes apparently was really bad.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to have them.
So what do you guys think about the mullet making a comeback? Is it just like, oh my gosh, that's so cringy?
I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't know. I don't see what the appeal is.
Dan always talks about how he had his mullet and was driving his Trans Am or something, mullet flapping in the wind.
Because what's weird to me is that I guess I just don't understand it coming back. Like, there's all this thing of like, you see someone with a hairstyle, I'm like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you're like, kids these days, like that. Yeah. But I'm like, we've been there. Like, we've seen this before. Why is it coming back? I thought we were done with that. I thought that's the part where I don't understand, why it's so popular.
Was it you that had corduroy on the other day?
Yeah, because I'm a child in the 90s.
Like,
and so,
corduroy, like I remember when we wore corduroy in the 90s, like all these people were like, oh man, that corduroy, that's from the 80s, we quit wearing that. And we're like, no, I'm a skater, bro. This is cool.
This is cool, yeah.
And then now to see it coming back again, it's like that sort of like, you hold it. I'm still waiting for my 50-inch wide pipe jeans, my Jinko pipe jeans from my raver days. I still have one pair in the closet.
I feel like maybe even during your time, those were niche.
They were. It might have been with some bead jewelry and stuff. Yeah, it was a phase. Yeah, I was going to be raver for life. I was so sure of it.
Raver for life.
Yeah.
What about? And I feel like I know this for both of you. Earrings.
I don't think you do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, Heath?
Heath, I feel like I can tell that you did have at least one earring.
So I had hoops in both.
Did you have gauges?
Yeah. No, because I there's some things where I overthink like crazy. Even when I'm talking, I'm thinking about 3 sentences down, which is why I have awkward pauses randomly like that because I'm stumbling over it, But so I will overthink everything that I'm doing. So even with getting earrings, I was like, do I really want to do that? What's that going to look like in 20 years? What's that going to look like? Which is why, I never got tattoos, even though like I thought about it. There's times where I was sitting in the chair and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it because I would overthink it. And so when it came to gauges, everything in my mind was going, what is that going to look like in 20 years?
When you take them out.
Yeah. And so that's where my mind went. And so I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. So even now I'm like, because I took my earrings out years ago, but I still mess with my earlobe because I can feel the hole in it, and everything. I think this one just recently closed, but I can still feel it and everything. But yeah, it's just, I'm like, that's with me for the rest of my life. That's scar tissue right there. Yeah.
So how many do you think I've had? Like 0, 1, 10? Like
Okay. As far as, ear piercings, I don't know if you've had any, and I'm looking at your ears right now and I can't really tell, but I know you have had other piercings. Yes.
I did. So I did have,
I'm really scared right now.
Yeah. No, no one has to like mute it. We're okay. We're good. Parents. So
family friendly.
I was at church camp in Texas. I'm growing up in Kansas, visited my aunt and uncles down in Texas.
Okay.
Went to church camp. And at this point, I'm like a skater or whatever, kind of like, we were kind of the bad kids that like, went because we had to, but weren't really into it.
You weren't a stoner. Stoners were the bad kids. Well, skaters and stoners fought.
Maybe, but
okay.
We were the bad.
That's a different podcast.
We were the church bad kids.
Yes.
Yeah. But we found Jesus, so that's great.
Amen.
But we went down to this camp, and I decided at some point in the guys' dorm, someone had a stud earring, and I decided I wanted to get a stud earring. And so we took ice.
Oh, geez.
That's the way to do it.
My earlobe and pushed it through, and that really hurt badly.
Yeah.
And so it was crooked. They like made it crooked, so we had to pull it out and do it again. At that point, it wasn't numb anymore, so that it hurt worse.
Oh.
Well, so I'm cool. I got like an earring, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, at like
cool.
16 or whatever. And then I go back, maybe it was 15. I go back to my aunt and uncle's house after the camp's done, and they are mortified because they can't send me back to my very conservative parents in Kansas with an earring. My parents would kill them. And so they're like, you got to take that out. You're taking that, whatever. And so then they're like, here's some like triple Bactin, antibiotic cream. Put this on it multiple times a day. So by the time I got back to Kansas, week and a half later or whatever, it was like a dot. But
okay.
Yeah. And then I had my labrae, like my lip pierced. So like if I don't have any facial hair at that point, sometimes people can see that scar. My kid likes to poke at it for some reason, which is kind of weird. But anyhow, I had it done. But again, I went back to Kansas and at this point I was better. I had found Jesus more so than my negative church period. And I was now leading some youth group stuff. And there was a weekend it's a big church-wide revival event, but I was leading the youth part. And I drove all the way from Arizona to Kansas, and as I drove up, I'm like, I can't obviously go in with this in my lip. So I took it out and put it in my car. And when I did that, then the next day I was around my parents the whole day. So in the evening when I went to bed, I was trying to get it back in, and it kind of started closing up already. It started sort of healing. So I took we were staying at somebody's house at this, was letting people stay there. And I found a sewing machine needle and literally re-pierced it and put it back in for the night. And I won't get
a little
details.
woozy.
Those are thick needles too. A sewing machine needle.
It was, they don't like slope. They're just, it's like small and then a lot And so that was not a great, it was like a test, might as well have been. But then the next day I was around the thing again, so I had to take it out.
Oh,
and by the end of that day, I could maybe
lot
fit
of work
like a little
and
thumbtack maybe into it a little bit. And it closed within like 2 days. So I never got it redone. So that was my big story on that. Yeah.
Yeah. What about pagers? Beepers. Did you guys ever have pagers?
Yes. So little known fact, my beeper number is now the same as my cell phone currently number. I've had the same number my entire adult life. So I had a transparent pager. But it was
those were the jam.
But it was like root beer color tint.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had that, and I had the little silver chain
Ooh,
that looped on there
that's
because you don't
cool.
want you have a pager, you don't want to lose it.
You always
pop
lose
out of
it.
your And so I had it onto my belt chain and everything, and I was probably the coolest kid in my Christian school.
Oh yeah, with your pager.
Yeah.
They wouldn't take those away in school
No,
like
because
nowadays,
it was for work.
Okay.
So, drug deals apparently.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and then you can like flip them up. Like you can like text like 911 if like you need someone to call you right away. So it's like you'd put your number in and then 911 if you're like, hey, you better like, this is important, call me. And then you have to go try and find a payphone, which at that point payphones were starting to become less so. And then you got to have change and all that. Yeah. And then I had my first pager when I was like in 19 or something like that. Got it from JJ's, the King of Beepers.
Oh. The King of Beepers.
The King of Beepers. JJ's, the King of Beepers was his commercial.
Yep.
That's amazing.
And I think it was like $32 a month or something.
Yeah,
it was
it wasn't-
pretty pricey.
wow,
It was not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
And
more
so-
than I actually pay for my phone bill now.
That's
Wait,
insane.
what?
I use Mint Mobile.
Mint Mobile.
This is my
Oh.
free ad read, sponsored by Mint Mobile. It's actually really affordable. It's Ryan Reynolds' phone network.
Isn't that the one he sold? That he just made a bunch of money?
I don't know if he sold it. All I know is that you pay for like the year upright.
She's canceling.
Paid like $300 maybe for the whole year, and I have like good data, unlimited talk and text.
Can go wherever.
I had
Easy.
Verizon for my pager and everything, and it was but it was pretty pricey.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess
If they had
things have
offered
changed.
Mint back then, I would have.
Yeah, you should have done Mint
yeah.
Mobile.
See, I had the pager, but then my aunt and uncle, who I was out here living with them at the time, they had cell phones, and my uncle had one that actually you could like program numbers, but my aunt's cell phone, you could recall the last number, or you had to punch in a new one. So yeah, it was very like super basic. But yeah, so
I remember my dad brought home the coolest thing. It was about this little larger than a pager, except you could open it up, flip it open. Again, my dad worked for a computer company and everything. It was ITT, which was IBM's rival at the time. Like those were the two big companies at the time. And so, but he brought home, and you could flip it open like a miniature laptop.
Oh,
and it had
yeah.
a QWERTY keyboard on it, and you could send text messages, and it was up to 140 characters, which is. This was the beginning stages of Blackberries.
oh sure, yeah.
And then, which then was a precursor to the Twitter and everything, which was why it was limited to 140 characters, was because that's all that could be sent in that format. Yeah. And so, but I just remembered, I'm living in the future right now. Like my dad brought home, like this is, what next stop is Star Wars. I mean, it's flying cars, the whole gamut. It was amazing.
Do you guys remember what your first cell phone was?
Yes.
What was it?
Well, so my dad's first cell phone was the one that had the battery pack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so if you watch the Lethal Weapon movie,
Yeah,
Danny
yeah.
Glover steps out of the car and has like a suitcase with a phone. My dad had one of those. My first phone that I got looked like a door wedge, and you had the antenna went or whatever on top of it and everything, and I had a little case on it, so it made it cooler.
Yeah.
But that was really cool. It was. But the world did change when I actually got I got a BlackBerry. And then I
full
went from that
keyboard.
to a Trio.
Oh yeah, yep.
And I was just like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever.
I think so. I'm trying to remember if my first one was one of those like Nokias. I did have one of those, or if it was this one that was kind of like literally a candy bar kind of size, but the little earpiece would pop up and click up, and that would like answer your phone. So when it was down, that would block it. And my old boss, I think, had given it to me, and he had it at the stucco company we worked at. And you could have like on the little screen, like your name or whatever, so someone knows whose phone it was. And at one point, the gal at the stucco company picks it up. She's like, "Hey, who is Jesus Saves? I don't even know that guy. Is he a new employee?"
Jesus saves.
Jesus saves.
Yeah.
That is so.
Jesus Saves?
Yeah, my old
Jesus
my old boss
Saves.
was a
Your
believer,
pizza's ready.
and so he had Jesus Saves on his phone. And the gal, because a lot of the employees were Hispanic that was working for the stucco company, she just was like, "Jesus Saves," like.
Someone's calling you.
What was the type of phone where if you hit the button, it would go crunk and open up, and that was how you'd answer it?
Those are cool, like the Matrix hat.
Yes.
Yeah,
Those
I never
were
had that. That was
amazing.
cool.
I remember I'm like, I am the coolest person on the face of the planet.
Now, did you ever have a kickflip? Were you old enough for kickflips?
I did not have a kickflip.
Where you
My
like
first,
open it suddenly it's like quack quack. Like
My first phone was a Motorola Razr.
oh okay yeah.
So those were actually
Was it,
pretty
like, pink?
cool.
Very thin.
No, mine was silver and it had a dragon on it.
Oh
It was pretty cool.
That's edgy.
I had to share it with my sisters, which was not as cool. And then my first phone that I had all to myself was a BlackBerry. It was my dad's old BlackBerry. My dad is also in tech, so he would always have like the newest phone, and we would just take turns whenever my dad would upgrade, we'd get one. And so I got a BlackBerry, and I thought I was really cool.
Because they did so much. It was a computer. in
But
your
I
hand.
was not allowed to go on the internet because it was really expensive.
Yeah.
And so if I would accidentally open the browser, I'd be freaking out trying to get it to close, and they're so slow that I'm like,
Yeah.
please
So-
don't charge my dad.
To that point, I remember getting the AOL discs in the mail.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And everything. And so you could have up to, a certain amount of
Do
hours.
you know about these AOL discs?
No, I don't.
So when internet became a thing,
Mm-hmm.
you had to access it. You had to have a provider for it because your phone company didn't offer it.
Yeah.
And everything. And so AOL was the main company, and so they would send you a little CD that you put in your computer and everything, and it would allow you a certain amount of hours free of charge.
Okay.
So you could create an AOL account.
Yep.
You could log on to the computer, and
200 hours free
Yeah.
would be stamped at the top.
and you get a
Wow.
modem you would unplug your phone, or you'd have an adapter to where you could have them both in at the same time and everything.
Okay.
And so your computer would then connect and make all that, and then it would log in and you go, "You've got mail."
My friend's older brother, he was like had his own blog or something, but like no one was a blogger at that point. It was like
Yeah.
a couple people that were into like sort of. It was a couple tech guys, that had it.
Telling stories.
And he would be on the internet, and we'd go to like call our, my mom to be like, "Hey, I need you to come pick us up," or what. We'd pick up the phone, and suddenly you'd hear that like, "Ah," and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh no!" And you'd hang that up and run for your life because suddenly he'd be like, "Who picked up the phone?" Like from the upstairs because it'd cut off your signal
Yeah.
and it'd kick you off.
Everything,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it takes forever to download anything.
Yeah.
I was thinking you also said BlackBerry. I used to have MSN Messenger, so I do the little MSN Messenger
Yeah.
on BlackBerry. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought I was so cool for that.
You know what I do miss about like actual physical keyboards though is that you could text during class because you could do it under the desk. You didn't have to look because you'd memorize where everything was because some certain letters would have, or I guess certain numbers would have bumps, and then okay, if I click one once, it's going to be the A. If I click it twice, it's going to be B.
That's actually I've never heard of anybody doing that. That's actually
Yeah.
Oh, that was such a thing. And then once you got your BlackBerry, you just memorized where everything was because it was an actual keyboard. So then you could just.
Because for us, the first text messages were off of your keypad.
Oh yeah.
And so you had to go flip through it, hit three
Right,
twice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the number one, you could hit it once and it's A or yeah.
I'm like, oh, I just want to say hello.
But if you remembered how to do that and you had it memorized, you could totally just like under the desk not get caught.
Can I say one of my pet peeves is there's still a couple people I run into them like once or twice a year that they text as if they still have that type of like pushing the 1-3 times, like PLZ, RMBR,
The
like
unneeded abbreviations.
yeah, and it's like all abbreviations. You're like, you're doing that on purpose. I know it automatically is filling in those
just
things
to annoy us.
Yeah,
Well, you.
it's not a thing now. Stop it. Just stop it.
Certain abbreviations are kind of fun.
Well,
I like an
sometimes.
LOL.
But yeah, an LOL and stuff. But no, when it's like multiple,
Yeah, or when people make up their own. My husband does that all the time. He'll just make up a random abbreviation when texting me, and I'm like, "What is that?" I'll Google it. It's not a thing. He's like, "Oh, I made it up. It means this." Like, what? How would I know that?
Well, the amount of times I've like
supposed to be
literally
right here.
Googled, and
I
again,
know.
this is kind
He's
of
so
this
funny.
literally happened to me today. I'll ask you, Heath, first. If someone texted you WYD,
Oh,
what would you
I know that.
WYD?
I don't know.
What are you doing?
Yeah, someone
That
texted
one's
me that.
normal. What are you doing?
WYD. What are you doing?
I wouldn't have. put
Or
that.
like RN is like right now. Like
Oh, right
if
now.
you were to send WYD space RN.
I literally
right now.
Googled it. I'm like, did they have a typo? Like they sat on their phone?
Wid. Wid.
That is so weird. Yeah, I've never heard that.
You know, one of the trends that I don't think is ever going to go out of style, or maybe it's just always been out of style, is dad jokes. And honestly, I need some more dad jokes. It's been too long. So let's jump right in with Alex Friend, our resident Pure Heart dad.
Hey, we have a segment we call Heard It From a Friend, where Alex Friend, soon-to-be father, gets his practice in telling future dad jokes that he's, getting ready for the young one. And all you fathers out there, pull out your phone or a piece of paper to scribe those down to, we would say, not torture's not the right word, but to impart wisdom to your children and fun and laughter and merriment. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, Heath isn't in this. There might be a reason. Yeah.
Oh,
Heath's-
Yeah.
I was wondering. Yeah.
Heath, maybe fell into that first camp. He just couldn't handle it.
Torture.
Yeah. Too much for him.
Okay, well, let's see here. What does cake and baseball have in common?
Cake and baseball.
I want to say something to do with the plate.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
There's plates in baseball.
Yeah, and there, strike swings. I don't know.
They both need batter.
Oh, that's even better.
Batter and the play. Yeah, you gotta revise that now. Now I expect you to have one that's like multiple baseball terms because Brenna took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, you're talking to the king of band nerds, and so for me to pull out a sports reference was
It's as far as he's willing to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, sports
and even then
references-
it had cake related to it, so that's more my wheelhouse.
Right.
Now,
Exactly.
You're not a big sports person, right? Brenna?
Not at all.
But your kid
Is super athletic. It's really
and
annoying.
I think you said he loves to watch it too.
He will beg us to put
And
on.
he's like 3.
Yeah, he just turned 3, and so I'll go on YouTube and I'll look up NBA highlights, and he'll just sit there and watch it. He'll run to his room and grab his basketball, and he'll try to copy what they're doing. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Don't know where he got it from. Nature versus nurture. It's just all nature, I guess.
Just all nature.
Nice.
Yeah.
I am curious to see, for my son, what it's gonna be. Is it gonna be music? Is it gonna be sports?
Yeah,
Is it gonna be
both, like Troy
something?
Bolton from High School Musical.
Exactly.
He could do
Yes,
both.
I will just have him watch High School Musical
Every day.
This is you.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll finish it off with this. When is a door not a door?
I really don't know.
When it's a jar.
When
When it's a jar. Oh. When it's a jar. Yeah, that's.
That was adorable.
Wow.
Man,
I had to
tell
add
you
in
what,
my
you're
own.
like
You
bring-
just stole my job, so
She's like bringing we might just have to
this
have
is why I don't like
I'm
having
taking
Brenna
your
here.
segment.
This is 5 times
we got the
now.
new segment that's
I actually do keep doing this to you on the weekends.
Yes.
I'll steal your
Well,
job.
okay, since you've already stole my spotlight, go ahead and share the other one that you had.
I don't remember. What did I say?
Wasn't it? It was a. Oh,
Oh, it was the car one. Like what
Yep.
car?
what car does Jesus drive?
And you said,
Chrysler.
and I said, I thought, oh, what was it? Something about coming on his Accord. It was like a Honda Accord. I don't know. I worded it funnier, and then everyone loved it. They were like, Brenna's so funny.
Yep. And then I walked.
and he just sulked in the dark. He's
Yeah,
like,
Alex was like, I quit.
stealing my thunder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back here saving lives, and you're
So hopefully we can have Heath next time.
yeah. I'm retiring.
learn something new and heard it from well then it doesn't work. You
Heard it
can't
from a Bren.
Oh, well, thank you for bringing our these moments of liveliness and pain.
Yes. That's what I'm here for.
Well, thank you so much again for tuning in with us. We had a great time making this episode, and we've got a lot of awesome episodes coming up that you are not going to want to miss. So make sure that you subscribe or follow our podcast so that you don't miss an episode. We love you, Pure Heart family, and we hope you have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday.